Hey everybody, Melissa Harmel here, realtor with eXp Realty Alaska. It's episode 3 of our Home in Alaska show, and I am so excited to come to you today and talk with one of my favorite Alaska home loan professionals. Today's topic, the housing bubble. Are we going to see a crash in the real estate market? Is there going to be another housing bubble that bursts? So, hey, Rhonda, how
Hey,
are you today?
Melissa. I am doing great. I am doing great. Thank you.
So, can you share with our viewers how long you've actually been doing home loans?
Oh my gosh, I started in 1983, so been doing this for a minute or two, but I actually just love it. It's still just my favorite passion to do every single day. And you've been doing this a long time too.
Got licensed in 1998 and have been in this business since 1998.
98.
Yes, not as long as you, but
Uh,
still.
Still a long,
So,
long time, yeah.
I don't know about you, but in the past 2 weeks, I put properties on the market, did open houses, and I met about 100 different buyers walking through properties. And some of them seem to think that we're headed for a housing bubble.
Hmm.
Since I thought since you and I had been in the market during 2008, we could actually share why the market of 2021 and 2022 are not the same market as 2008. So,
Yeah.
our first question today for you is what is different today in credit scores that weren't the same as when we were giving loans out in 2008? And did that 2008 credit score play a role in the housing bubble crash?
Yeah, I love this question because I get it a lot too from my clients. They ask me, is this really the right time to buy? Are they overpaying for a home? Are the prices out of control? Are they going to lose money by buying a home? And I think the difference between now and 2008 and 9 was for about 5 years prior to that, we had, you probably remember, they were called subprime loans, Alt A loans, some creative financing type loans. And we used to say, oh my gosh, if you could fog a mirror, you could buy a house and sign your name. And those days are pretty much gone. So they analyzed what was happening, and really for several years, those loans were all performing. And so they continued to do them because they worked. People were still able to make those monthly payments. But as soon as the market started shifting and the economy started changing, then suddenly we had a big slew of foreclosures. Well, so they stopped all of those loans. They do not exist anymore. And now we have a big there are regulations on the credit and the loan products, and we're putting good people in good loans to buy good homes. And so we're in a very stable market now. So it's very different than pre 2008.
Well, and I think there was this cute little name that I think the Canadians were the ones that gave them, called ninja loans, where we did no income, no job, and no asset loans back in
Yeah.
2005, 6, 7.
Yeah.
So different today, we don't have those type of loans available.
Yeah, exactly. So right now they're all very full documentation loans. So we look at those three C's, right? The credit, your capacity, do you have the income to make those payments? And the collateral, how good is this house? And so pre those 2008-9 years, then there was a lot of new construction, there was a lot of building going on. People were slamming up houses very, very quickly. And sometimes the collateral wasn't very well, and that made the loans fail. Sometimes the borrowers maybe fudged just a little bit on their qualifying incomes or their assets. And so we found out that that really wasn't a very good way to practice lending in the industry. So it got changed.
So, law of supply and demand, how did that play a role in the housing bubble of 2008?
Right. And remember, a lot of those loan programs had um, um, adjustable rate features. So they might have been fixed for 2 or 3 years and then they went to an adjustable rate interest rate and payments. And so what people would do is they would get in at these crazy, crazy, super low interest rates for that first 2 or 3 years. And then when they started adjusting, big adjustments, they couldn't afford the payments anymore. So I'd go put a sign out in their front yard and it would say for sale, and there'd be a line of people wanting to buy that house. So they'd get out of it and they'd go do it again. And that worked until it didn't. Because now there was a lot more inventory out on the market. People had a lot more choices. They weren't so desperate to make an offer on a home. And the next time it happened and they put the sign out in the yard, there was no line of people. And that's when we started seeing them fall apart because there's a lot more inventory back then in 2008 and 9. And right now we have no inventory. And so right now there's still a huge demand for housing and there's a very low supply of inventory to buy. And so that's another indicator that's different these days than it was back then in 2008 and 9.
Well, and I just ran the statistics for my team the other day, and we recognize that we're at 25% of what we had on the market last year at this time. And last year was considered a low inventory market. So we're almost at a scarcity market in terms of inventory. And buyers, like I said, that was 2 open houses and over 100 people through that were qualified to purchase.
Right. And so unless that supply and demand level starts changing, where we get an entire influx of properties on the market, or for some reason everybody decides to quit buying homes, then we're not going to see that bubble burst. That's kind of the industry take on what's happening right now and comparing it back to that time. And so, you can only build so fast. Prices for new construction are up 21% on average, about $19,000 per home today. Everybody still needs a home to live. The vacancy factor for rentals is, as I understand, less than 1%. So finding a new rental is very, very difficult as well. So I don't see the ability to change either one or both of those two factors that would create this market to collapse.
Okay, so a recap. There is a difference between qualifying buyers today, and not to say that you ever did the ninja type loan or low, no interest. What was that? Those subprime loans where actually they were interest only and people didn't even know that they were really in those loans. We qualify people differently now, right? Aren't you required to provide a loan estimate that has to kind of match up with that closing disclosure at the end so the buyer really understands what they're purchasing?
Right, absolutely. So in 2010, the whole playing field changed when it came to lending. And so now all the lenders are very heavily regulated. They have a pretty heavy thumb on their heads. And the idea behind it is for protection to the consumer. And so when we issue a loan estimate upfront, right at the beginning of your loan process, then it says, here's the fees you can pretty much expect to pay at the time of closing. So one thing to keep in mind is that a lot of times we'll add in anything and everything that we can think of that might possibly come up on the day of closing. Not always will they be there. So for example, maybe we put in a fee for a final inspection on an appraisal so that if the appraisal comes back, says there's repairs, the repairs get done, the appraiser has to go back out, there's going to be another fee for that. Well, the appraisal might come back just perfectly fine, but I want you to be prepared right up front for that event should it happen. So the loan estimate is going to have as many possible fees as possible that could be charged. And then the closing disclosure is what really ended up happening. So those loan estimates are sometimes a little bit overinflated just because we want you to be prepared. I'd rather you have the conversation that your closing costs are less at closing. I would never want them to be higher. And there's rules that says that they can't be. So yes, we've got very transparent lending. You have a lot more documents to sign because they want everybody to be very aware of what kind of a loan that they're getting. And it's interesting because Alaska and a few other states were never really big on those subprime loans and those interest-only loans and those no income, no asset loans. And we just put good people into good loans. So we didn't see the same effect here in Alaska that the rest of the United States does. But, you know, of course, we're part of the United States, so we got lumped in with everybody else and had the same thumb on our head. But really, it was the practices that we did anyway. So there wasn't huge shifts for us, and our foreclosure rate just remained very, very low here in Alaska. We just never really saw that big bubble burst.
And it still remains low. And that was an interesting comment that I had, I think, by a couple people in that open house scenario was, well, we're just going to wait until all these foreclosures come on the market. And I'm like, well, we're not most likely going to see those. So again, we're doing more transparent lending.
Mm-hmm.
We have way less inventory than last year, and we're not seeing some crazy increase in building all over the state of Alaska. So we most likely will still be in what we call a low inventory market for 2022. Interest rates remain low. They're not predicted to go over 4%, correct? So no housing bubble.
Not that we can tell today. Obviously,
Okay.
things shift and change very quickly, but the indicators that we have today is no housing bubble.
Okay, great. Well, great information. Thank you so much for sharing. So if you follow me here on my YouTube channel or Instagram or wherever you're watching this, I am a big believer in making sure that we share information so
Mm-hmm.
that you can make decisions that are great for you and financially great for you.
Right.
Rhonda and I will be doing a weekly show, and we'll be answering common questions that both of us get during the process of meeting with buyers, meeting with sellers, her meeting with buyers, and meeting with people refinancing.
Uh-huh.
We're going to share that information with you. So please, at the end of this video, our contact information is there. Please feel free to reach out and ask us any questions. Our phone numbers, our email addresses, our website addresses are there. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know if you have any questions, and don't forget to subscribe below. And we'll be with you next week again for some additional real estate questions. So see you next week, Rhonda.
See you, Melissa.